Hello everybody, my name is Jay Lancaster, and welcome back to Batman vs Superman: Dawn of Justice Rewritten. In this episode, we're going to be going over the first act of the rewrite. I realized in the last episode of the series that I kind of forgot to add in the minor structural fixes for the rewrite of the movie. These aren't major plot details of the film, like the Doomsday and Wonder Woman cuts, but they are kind of important, in my opinion, to structure this movie. Number one, I don't think that the shot of with Bruce standing next to a Robin suit should be in the movie. I mean, in general, the shot is actually really cool. It shows how old Bruce has gotten, and it shows that people have abandoned him. That's great, but given that Zack Snyder has said this is supposed to be Dick Grayson's suit and it's referencing death in the family, I don't think we should keep it in. If we are, then just erase the Joker text to it and say that Robin left at some point. I don't think that we need to establish that Batman has a dead Robin in the movie that also introduces Batman. This isn't my personal bias against killing Robin here. I just genuinely think that having a dead Robin without any context is really going to hurt this franchise going forward. We can reference Dick Grayson and Robin in the movie, but not with the context that Robin is dead. I think that maybe having him just leave Bruce to go start the Titans or become Nightwing is better for the story that we're trying to tell. Secondly, I want to establish that Gotham City and Metropolis are not sister cities in this universe. I don't know why this annoyed me so much in the original BVS. They were obviously set up that way so the multiple challenges could happen across Gotham and Metropolis without the audience wondering how the characters got between the two cities. However, I don't think it's a huge problem that needs to be explained in that kind of way. In this version of the movie, I'm going to say that the two cities are about a 2-hour drive apart. In this analogy, think of Metropolis as New York City, while Gotham City is Atlantic City. For people not in the US, those are two cities, one in New York, one in New Jersey. Kind of how Gotham and Metropolis are in the comics, but it's not really important. Alright, with all that in mind, let's move into our prologue. The original BVS opens with a retelling of the Batman origin, which I don't think we really need. People already know the origin of Batman, so in this we're going to shake it up a little bit. Our film opens with a family walking out of a movie theater. A father, a mother, and a young boy turn into an alleyway, where they are stopped by a mugger who points a gun in the mother's face, getting her pearls caught. A shadow passes over the mugger's face as he looks up to the skies. Suddenly, the Batman leaps down from the rooftops, using a batarang to take them all out. He handcuffs the man in the alley as the family we saw runs off into the night. As police sirens get closer, Batman grapples up to the roof and takes off into the night. The police find the guy tied up with a note from Batman.
So, the first half of this prologue is going to be our first introduction to this version of the DCEU Batman. And I think that one of the biggest missed opportunities of Batman vs. Superman is the theme of fallen heroism, but we never get to see the hero before the fall. So, we're going to introduce this version of Batman first as a way to kind of parallel what we're going to see later from our Batman. So this version is going to be kind of modeled after the Adam West Batman aesthetically, so classic Batmobile, more gadget-based combat. If possible, a gray and blue suit. I think that would look nicer than the gray and black that we see later. I think that would provide a better contrast. So I think that's kind of where we're steering this Batman towards. Also, I think that visually, if we can make this look like the opening to Batman the Animated Series, I think that'd be pretty cool. I kind of wrote it so that we could do a little bit of a Batman the Animated Series tribute, so that one's for me.
The next morning, Bruce Wayne is on a drive to the Metropolis branch of Wayne Enterprises, reading the newspaper reports about blackouts across the city. We realize that we are watching Bruce Wayne's perspective of the events of Man of Steel, and as Bruce steps out of the car, we can see the final battle between Superman and General Zod going on in the distance. As the two aliens crash into the building, it comes falling down. People are running away from the carnage as Bruce runs into the clouds of smoke and debris. He grabs and protects the little girl as the battle ends and the smoke clears. After the battle, Superman flies down into the wreckage of the city, people applauding and thanking him for his actions. The little girl Bruce saved runs up to hug Superman as Bruce slowly turns away. End prologue, title sequence.
I think that this and the first half of the prologue kind of shows both sides of Batman, as well as introducing our conflict for this movie and why it makes sense. So in the original Batman vs. Superman, we just get the second half of the prologue where Bruce runs into the Battle of Metropolis. I think that should be in there, and I think that does provide the catalyst to where we see our hero go later. But I think that the first half is important to show the origin and where we're starting from before that catalyst. We also want to show Superman in this intro, not with them interacting, but with just a casual look at how people treated Superman after the Battle of Metropolis. We want to show Superman kind of getting worshipped like a god, and it's kind of an awkward situation, but we're kind of setting that dynamic up between the two of them, and I think the prologue is a good chance to show that. So even after all this chaos and destruction that Superman, eventually is going to be blamed for by Batman, we want to show people still treating Superman as if he's some great hero, and I think that's a good way to do it in this prologue.
So let's move on to the proper story of this film. It's been about 2 years since Superman fought Zod and established himself as a hero. We meet up with Lois Lane in Nigeria, covering a story about the local warlord for the Daily Planet. She's taken hostage with her photographer, who is an undercover CIA agent and is not named Jimmy Olsen. Superman swoops in to rescue her and incapacitates the warlord. Back in the US, this action is met with controversy as they are reported dead with no visible sign of death. We aren't using the magic bullet angle from the original film. Superman is lambasted in the press and people are calling on the government to step in and hold Superman accountable for his action. The person leading the civilian charge against Superman is Alexander Luthor Jr. Superman publicly accepts the government's summons to Congress, and Luthor announces a party at his mansion to celebrate. Press and public figures are invited to this party, including both Bruce Wayne and Clark Kent, who is invited to cover the story for the Planet. Clark wants to cover the Batman story developing in Gotham, however, Perry White refuses, saying that the cost of sending Clark back and forth from Gotham to Metropolis would probably bankrupt the paper. Clark wants to investigate Batman as a series of criminals have been murdered in Gotham prisons, all with bat symbols branded onto their chests. In Gotham, Alfred confronts Bruce about this direction that Batman is taking, but Bruce defends himself, saying that he's not responsible, and he is not a murderer. At the party, Bruce runs into Clark, and the two of them have a conversation discussing the methods of Batman and Superman. In this case, we're gonna play up the age difference between Bruce and Clark, individual liberty versus safety and all that stuff. Alexander Luthor Jr. breaks up the conversation, introducing himself to Bruce and Clark. Bruce acts really chummy with Luthor, talking about how he was friends with his late father, and Luthor talks about buying out Wayne Enterprises. You know, like that conversation from Arkham Knight that's an Easter egg. It's a little bit of a funny moment that we could play.
So taking a second away from the story again, I think that Clark looking into Batman's abuses of civil liberties is a great subplot for Clark in this movie. It's a great, you know, kind of very Superman thing to care about how Batman's treating criminals in Gotham versus Metropolis. I think that is a great angle for Superman to go with. I think we should keep with this angle. We're going to keep developing it over the course of BVS Rewritten. I also think that we should play up kind of an age difference. I'm stealing this from MovieBob in this case, where he talks about how they really don't reference the fact that Clark is like 10, 15 years younger than Bruce. So we could totally have a kind of Gen X Batman versus millennial Superman. I think that's really interesting.
And it's now part of the story where we have to talk about Lex Luthor in this rewrite. Honestly, I think we should keep Jesse Eisenberg as Luthor. He was an interesting interpretation of Luthor, and I think that we can play up how this version of Luthor kind of acts different compared to other interpretations. He's kind of this post-crisis regular billionaire Luthor mixed with Jesse Eisenberg's performance in The Social Network, so we aren't really going to recast him. Instead, we're going to give him a little bit more of a backstory that's tied into Superman. So let's get into Lex Luthor's speech. Luthor's giving a speech to the party guests, talking a lot about Superman's role on Earth, talking about gods and man. During the speech, Bruce slips off to a side hallway, plugging a drive into the server. At a point during the speech, he gets choked up talking about his father. He starts stammering and eventually stops. Bruce steps up to the stage, finishing Luthor's thought that man has to take back their planet before it's too late. Luthor thanks Bruce. As Clark walks away from the party, Bruce grabs a drive before leaving himself. Alright, now time for the scene I hate the most in the original movie. The original hearing scene is a chance to have Superman profess why he does what he does. It's something that we never see in this universe, or really any Superman media, because Superman has always just been a stoic character to these writers. So we're finally going to let Superman have a dedicated scene to talk about why he loves this planet, and that he's dedicated to protecting it. And in the original movie, it has Lex Luthor leaving an actual jar of piss on a senator's desk and a building exploding. So let's make a big change to the scene. At the hearing, Superman discusses his reasons for doing what he does, that some problems are too great for humanity, and if someone has abilities like his, they owe it to humanity to help people. Think something between the Ghostbusters 2 speech and the scene between Peter Parker and Tony Stark in Civil War. During the speech, time slows to a crawl as Clark hears something ticking. He snaps into action, getting as many people out of the building as he can. The building starts crumbling around him, and with Superman flying out of the fire. While Superman is initially celebrated for his action, the chairman of the committee, Senator Finch, who we established earlier in Act 1 as a Superman opponent, died in the hospital due to Superman's inability to get her out fast enough. Clark blames himself for this, and media pressure gets back on to Superman. In the end, the worst part of the Senate scene is that despite Superman recognizing a crisis, he doesn't do anything to help save the people in the Senate building. This shot of Superman standing in the fire as people burn around him drives me insane. From the first moment I saw the film opening weekend to editing this video, I hate this sequence so much. It's in moments like this that I question if Zack Snyder likes Superman in the first place. Does he actually like this character? Because this isn't Superman. I don't usually subscribe to this adaptation changes elements of the character, therefore it is wrong and the creators of this version are wrong. But in this case, I genuinely don't know of any version of Superman who would do this. The Superman in Batman vs. Superman Dawn of Justice isn't Superman. He's Dr. Manhattan from Watchmen. He doesn't care about humanity, doesn't want to save people. He is just an alien who does not understand the human. And that is not what Superman should stand for as a character. I said in part 0 that I hold no ill will towards the writers and creators of the movie, so let's end this little rant and get back to my version of this. During all of the chaos, LexCorp puts in a bid for Zod's ship from under Bruce Wayne. Bruce, however, is expecting a delivery of kryptonite that crashed during the Battle of Metropolis. He wants it for Batman-related things, but he knows that the disappearance of such a rare mineral would not go unnoticed, so he knows that Batman has to steal it. Alfred wants Bruce to think about his actions, but Bruce is kind of set in his new method of thinking. Bruce chases down the shipment of kryptonite in a brand new Batmobile, a massive tank-like structure, painted all black with a massive cannon on top. The cannon shoots the tires out of the truck as Batman swoops in, stealing the kryptonite. Batman stops the truck from falling into the harbor and drives away, without killing anyone. Original Batman vs. Superman. While on his way back out to the Batcave, Superman drops down on the road that Bruce is driving on. Batman hits Superman, bouncing his tank off of the Man of Steel. Superman pulls Batman out of the car, asking what he's planning. Batman almost smirks and say, "Wouldn't you like to know, Clark Kent?" Superman pauses, saying, "Fine, Bruce." We establish that the two of them understand they know the other's identity and escalate the tension. Here is the bit where we have the "do you bleed" scene, just expanded a little bit. Bruce asks Clark if he knows how many people died in Wayne Tower when he slammed Zod into it carelessly. Clark asks Bruce if he really cared about all those lives, or did he just care about the loss of profit from the destruction. Clark flies away, warning Bruce that he wouldn't want to mess with him on a bad day. Bruce looks up at the sky and says, "You could say the same about me." Yeah, a bit of a cheesy line, but I don't know how to write a scene better.
And that is it for Act 1. That was a lot more than I expected to say about any one part of this story. And Act 2 is a lot longer than Act 1, so can't wait for that video to get made. So thank you all for watching Act 1 of Batman vs. Superman Rewritten. My name is Jay Lancaster, and I will see you all in Act 2. Thank you for watching.